We're going to be talking about top progression candidates from 2022 to 2023 season. That means players that maybe underperformed in 2022, but we can expect them to improve in 2023. You know, and this is a professional setup. I want you guys to understand that I've got multiple cameras on one screen. Okay, I've got a background that's pleasant. I've got the chat on the screen. Do you guys remember when I couldn't even figure out how to get the chat on the screen? We just keep getting better out here. That's what we're all about. We're all about improvement. Hey, wait, cheers before we begin. Cheers, brother. Man. All right. I don't know if I'm even allowed.
You're gonna get strike two?
Yeah, watch me get strike two, man. That'd be so sad. Which is top progression candidates 2023. The first guy I want to talk about is Drake London.
You know, I think he's a little bit of an underrated route runner. He's got good hands. He's good against all types of coverage.
I think talking about the quarterback play is my biggest point with Drake London. He still saw over 100 targets for the season. And he had the unfortunate situation of working with Marcus Mariota. When Desmond Ridder took over, though, he was like a top 15 wide receiver, I want to say. In weeks 13 through 18, he was wide receiver 20 in fantasy. Okay, so I maybe give him a little bit more credit, but still top 20 wide receiver. And that was when kind of coincided when Desmond Ridder took over. And now in that quarterback room, we've got Desmond Ridder supposedly going to be the starter, and then Taylor Heineke as the backup. And that's going to be interesting because I think Heineke's a baller. Personally, I think he's a baller, and I think there's going to be a little bit more competition than people might think on QB1. But as of right now, Desmond Ridder is the guy over in Atlanta, and I think starting out with him versus Mariota is going to be putting Drake London in that 20 to 15 range all season long. And I think he has the opportunity to be a pretty consistent fantasy guy, to be honest with you. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's boom or bust. I think he's a guy that can see 6 to 10, 11 targets per game, you know?
Besides Kyle Pitts, what other options besides out of the backfield do they really have to throw to?
Not much.
Yeah, so I think I think 6 targets a game is a realistic expectation, like expectational floor for Drake London. Obviously, he'll have a few weeks below that, but I can see the guy, averaging 8-9 targets a game.
10-man league. Where would you expect Drake London to be drafted? Like, what round would you feel comfortable pulling the trigger on Drake London?
Like end of round 5, beginning of round 6, I think would be a good spot for Drake London in a 10-team league.
I think that's fair. Fair. And I'm mostly calibrated to like 12 and over. And I'd say in a 12-man league, like by the end of that, like 4th round, I think in the 4th.
Yeah, in the 4th.
Like if you can get him in the 5th, like you got to steal, in my opinion.
I'd agree.
Najee Harris. Okay,
you stole one of mine. He was number 2 on my list.
Going into last season, Najee Harris was what, like the 5th overall running back, like a prospect speaking, like going into drafts, people had him in the top 5. I mean, people were in the discussion of should I draft Derrick Henry or Najee Harris last season. He finished at number 12. It's not all on him, you know what I mean? He had a very poor offensive line. He had a quarterback situation where they, what was it, Trubisky? They thought Trubisky was going to be like the placeholder until Pickett was ready. And I said this last season on OTB. I knew Pickett was going to be in there by week 6 latest. And I don't know exactly when he came in, like maybe 4 or 5. But I think this is going to be a different offense. I mean, they added some great pieces on the offensive line. It's going to be a much, much better situation for both Kenny Pickett and Najee Harris. They're going to be able to kind of reset that offense. They got, George Pickens over there. They're going to start utilizing their key players more, and I think it is going to be a positive thing for Najee Harris. I think that he can get back into the top 5 because there's going to be some good fantasy running backs this season. but for sure the top 10, maybe like just outside the top 5 at like 6 or 7.
I think you nailed it on the head. I just might be a little bit higher on his ceiling. I genuinely think that Najee Harris, if everything goes right, can finish as the RB1 this year.
RB1, Mr.
Yeah, I
Drizzy
do.
with the top, dude, the hot takes with the top running back.
I think that's his ceiling. I think that they drafted a great offensive tackle in Broderick Jones. I expect Kenny Pickett to take a big step up this year.
It's the utmost ceiling of any player. It's the number 1 spot.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of running backs going ahead of him that I can't see, finishing up there. The thing is about Najee Harris is he's got a workhorse skill set, and Mike Tomlin, he likes to use one running back just traditionally. Look at Lev Bell. It's his absolute ceiling. I think more likely he finishes, RB8, RB9, RB10 in that range.
I think with the next guy, this is going to be someone. I think it's going to be a bittersweet thing for you, Papa Drizzy. I think it's a bittersweet, kind of like a father who maybe is estranged from his son, but then his son comes on and ends up become like one of the best sports players, soccer, basketball, whatever. And you're like, it's bittersweet because, my son's a baller, but also I'm estranged and I never get to see him even on Christmas or Thanksgiving. That's how I feel
Is he a
like
receiver?
He is a receiver.
Does he play for a team that wears red?
He does play for a team that wears red.
Does his name rhyme with Ladarius?
His name does, in fact, rhyme with Ladarius. It's Kadarius Toney. He has the potential in Kansas City to be like, I'm not going to say what Tyreek was because Tyreek's a whole different prototype player, but he's going to be the playmaker in that offense on the outside. Saw Mecole Hardman leave. We saw Juju Smith-Schuster leave. Juju had over 100 targets. Mecole Hardman had less targets, but you saw at the end of the season how they got him involved, how they got it going with him. I think that Patrick Mahomes, as good as he is with whoever he has, is going to really value a guy that can make plays, run routes on the outside, and not only run routes, but the yards after the catch that I think Kadarius Toney can have is insane. I think this dude can be a serious threat. I'm a Chargers fan. The Chiefs are in the AFC West, and I'm scared of Kadarius Toney.
Kind of a Swiss Army knife if you think about it. He's extremely explosive after the catch. I mean, the guy's, knees and ankles must be made of like just the world's most elastic rubber bands because this guy can cut like unlike anybody I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, Noel Dog saying Kelsey demands most of the targets, but KT is a dog. And that's the thing.
He still will.
Kelsey's still going to get his, but there's a difference between having a playmaker on the outside and having a playmaker at tight end too. Like, you know what I mean? Like they eat targets from each other in the broad sense, but in like a very like nuanced positional sense, like you're still going to have your plays on the outside. James Cook is another guy that you're going to want to look out for. Devin Singletary's going to Houston. He's gone. We saw Singletary. I saw him, especially he was on my fantasy team, but we saw him be a consistent fantasy back purely because of the offense that he was tied to. He's a solid player, but don't get me wrong, he's no Najee Harris. Now that Cook is the number 1 guy, okay, they did bring in Damian Harris, who is he'll gobble up some touchdowns because that's what he does best. He gobbles them up, Thanksgiving turkey, the whole thing. James Cook is going to move into that Devin Singletary sort of role. And being a Cook brother should tell you something. This dude is primed to be that back for an offense that is one of the best in the league. You're looking at Josh Allen. You're looking at Stephon Diggs. Any running back that's worth their salt tied to that offense is going to do great. So I think, honestly, Papa Drizzy, you were asking me who my top progression player, the biggest jump from 2022 to 2023, honestly, I got to say James Cook. I think James Cook has the potential to be a top 10 running back this season if he lives up to his talent, because he's talented. He's tied to a great offense. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities. Greg Dulcich. is a guy that I think could be one of the more interesting prospects for a later round tight end. He played 10 games. He got 55 targets in the games he played, 33 receptions, nothing crazy there. But they got Sean Payton. Sean Payton's played with, or I guess should say, has coached guys like Jimmy Graham, Jared Cook, and had success with them. Russell Wilson historically likes throwing to his tight ends. And I was high on Greg Dulcich coming in as a rookie last season. He was the 28th overall ranked tight end last year. 28th. He did only play 10 games. So if we can see a full healthy schedule out of Dulcich, I mean, where do you think he can be? I think he can be in the top 10.
Yeah, I think that a good floor for him is like tight end 20. He's definitely doing better than that next year. You made great points. Russ does historically like to throw to tight ends. I think that he's talented. I think Denver's got to be better than they were last year, you know.
It really just depends on Russell Wilson. I think he has to improve. I mean, I don't see him repeating that same kind of season as last season. I don't know if I think he's going to suddenly be the way he was like in Seattle, you know? Well, shoot, thanks for joining, dude. I think it was a fun experiment, I think overall, especially for our first time like trying getting the webcam looking good, and at least on my end, like the production aspect of it, making sure that the screen was formatted somewhat properly. And I think it was a good experiment, and I think it was an overall success, man. This was fun, and I appreciate you coming on. This was a good time.
Hopefully take advantage of it, start making streams of my own, start
dude, please
pushing myself to
do
different things. But yeah, it was something, I love being on the stream. I love helping out however I can, whenever I can. So yeah, thanks for having me on, bro.
Well, you're going to be on a whole lot more, especially when the season starts. So you better be ready, bro. You better be polishing that webcam lens, and you better be making sure the gain on your mic is proper, because it's about to be all season long, brother.
I popped my ring light cherry tonight.
Let's go, baby. It's nothing like popping your ring light cherry, bro. That's how you know. That's how you know you're really making it in the business, man. That's how you know.